And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He over there on his phone is Mark Messina. We're going to do a welcome back, a little Kevin McCarthy in the house, some NFL. The playoff bracket is set. We want to talk about Hamlin. It's been 2.5 weeks probably since we spoke.
Just think of how lost the people have been without us.
Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm surprisingly good.
What'd you do without me?
I lost a lot of basketball games.
You've been coaching. That's what you.
Yeah.
Just so people know, we have seen each other. This isn't.
Yeah. We were here
like
last week.
Yeah,
we
this isn't like we've been. But the last 2 years we've taken a hiatus kind of over Christmas. So it was good. I had some time off. I took a trip. Because I'm not coaching, I actually went to Nashville.
I've always on my list of places to go.
Yeah.
Which like 99% of them are domestic.
Okay. That's okay though.
I think it is. I want to go to Nashville. I'd love to go to New Orleans.
Okay.
I would love to go to Seattle.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of any other places that I've always wanted to do an Alaskan cruise, but I've heard they're overrated.
So my family did one. I did not go, but my parents, aunt and uncles, cousins, my sister, they all did this Alaskan cruise. They said it was incredible.
Really?
So I think it depends. I think it depends who you are and what you're expecting.
What you're looking for.
Yes. For my family, it was right up their alley.
Because it's good that you said that, because it was always like, even I was saying as a little kid, but when I was, a teenager and stuff, and I'd see pictures and I'd hear about it. Because you hear from my age, the cruise was the Love Boat.
Sure.
And they went all the tropical places and
right.
then the Alaskan cruise, and you just see the scenery, and I thought it would be. But I've heard lots of people say it was overrated. So I'm glad to hear it's not.
No, it's not. I have New Orleans is still on my list because you kind of gave my short list. I've still not been to Chicago. I am dying to get to Chicago.
I haven't been there for long.
Okay.
I've been in and out.
I'm dying to go to Chicago at some point. I have heard I don't know if this counts for our conversation, but I have heard Toronto is incredible.
I'll tell you this. Yeah. I have been to Toronto.
Okay.
And it is, and who was I just talking to about? Toronto within a week, and someone else who had been there. Uh-huh. And we had this same comment. It is because it's huge. Yeah. Toronto is not a little place. It is the cleanest city you will ever be in. And it was my two memories of it, other than when Mike pitched there, he won. I remember that. That's why we were there. Clean and way more international. I just figured they'd be all pasty white people because it's north.
Sure.
And it is a very, very international city.
Yeah. No, I've heard great things.
Really?
You actually mentioned the two that I don't understand is a bad word. New Orleans, because I've been to Vegas, I wasn't as excited to go to like a New Orleans or a Nashville. And I get that's not a fair comparison. But now that I've been to Nashville too, I feel like New Orleans kind of keeps slipping down my list.
I've heard and I don't know if it has to do with flooding or whatever. I've heard New Orleans it's cool, but it's not all you'd think it would be.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Redwood National Park is what I wanted. And now that it's burning down every summer, I should probably
I've never dove into the national park stuff.
I just want to see the big trees.
Yeah.
I would love to see Mammoth Cave.
Sure.
Because I think that's cool.
Yeah.
And I would love to just stand next to a tree that is so freaking big that I can't. And then after I've been there for 10 minutes, it's like whenever I go to New York City.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
Sure.
And I walk around and I think, I can't believe anyone ever built anything that big that doesn't fall over.
Sure.
And then I've heard all this stuff about what's underground to make the whole city work. Mm-hmm. And I just walk around mesmerized that any people were smart enough to put this together. And they did it 100 years ago.
Here, at the risk of upsetting people, I will say this. I don't fully understand the fascination with Seattle. And part of it's my own fault. I've never gone before. I have a cousin who raves about it. I have my girlfriend.
Well, hold on. Let me pick this apart. the cousin that raves about it,
Yeah.
you must think that cousin's an idiot.
I don't. I think he's highly intelligent. I also, you're gonna love this. My girlfriend's sister's boyfriend is from the Seattle area, from Washington, raves about it. I've never met somebody who didn't go to Seattle that did not rave about it. And yet, like, for me, it just seems dark. It seems gloomy. It seems way over there. It's just something like on my list. I would never have put Seattle like in my top. I would rather go to like Texas or Arizona, or like there's a lot of places I would have picked to go before Seattle, but everyone raves about it. So clearly I'm in the wrong.
I would probably throw Denver on my list somewhere too, just because it's the mountains. At least even going in and going out would be cool. I don't know when you're in Denver. I know it's the Mile High City, but I don't know how scenic the stuff around you is, what you can see and what you can't. But that would be cool.
No, so it was good. It is always nice when you kind of get to check one of those like bucket lists. Nashville was a bucket list. So
I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Nashville. I think I might have even told you this story recently. I might have said it on the air. I have a buddy from Baltimore, a good friend who has traveled around with the Ravens, and I don't say Baltimore's as bad as Philadelphia, but it's close. If you come in as a visitor, they're not going to be overly polite to you, and it's you know. And he said after going to Nashville, he said Nashville has the nicest people anywhere in the world, and he feels horrible how they treat people that come into Baltimore. Because he's like, if someone showed up on a Saturday night and they had a visiting jersey on, we'd be yelling at them in the bar, and he's like, they're giving us tour directions. They're like, when did you get here? When are you leaving? These are the places you need to eat. What do you like? What do you? Yeah. And so yes, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about it.
When's the last time you were in Nashville?
I've never been there.
Oh, that's right. You said you've never been there.
I've never been there.
I will say this.
No one ever invites me.
Cranes everywhere. The guy that I was speaking with told me that they basically are going to double in less than 10 years.
When you said crane, I just pictured the Karate Kid.
The Karate Kid doing the crane.
They're everywhere.
Cranes everywhere. Building development everywhere. It's crazy. The guy said they're going to double in less than 10 years. When I was walking around, and I made this joke to my family a couple of times, when you're walking around, you feel like it's Pittsburgh. Like it's Pittsburgh. When you're just walking around a side, the moment you walk inside, you're like, oh, this is Nashville. Like, this is different. Like, this is just because the country, the music, the talent, like there's just, but when you're just walking around the streets, I made the joke, like, this is Pittsburgh. Like, we're just walking around Pittsburgh. And then you turn the corner and there's some incredibly talented singer just sitting there playing. And you're like, this person is maybe the 100th best performer in Nashville, and they would be a star in Pittsburgh. And you're like, and that's when it hits you.
One of the reports I got is like, you walk in every bar, they have live music.
Yes.
Every single one. And he's like, you walk in and you think, this poor schmuck is really, really good. Yeah. And if this is his competition, he's never going to make it.
There was not a moment in Nashville, and I probably easily heard 100+ singers. Easily. I mean, I might be underestimated. There was not a single time somebody didn't open their mouth, and I was not like, that's an incredibly talented human being.
They're good.
Like they are unbelievable. And here's the crazy part. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're just some random bar in Nashville. And you listen, and I'm like, if you came to the bar on Market in Williamsport, like, you would pack the place. Like, you would fill it. It is wild. It's really, really crazy how talented people are.
So were you there over New Year's?
We were there over New Year's.
See, wait till you get old enough that on New Year's you just sit at home. We did the New Year's thing. We did like a Roaring 20s style party thing. It was really neat. So
really
you don't even know this then? Oh, by the way, tonight's a national championship game, isn't it?
It might be. I haven't looked.
So it was who was the late game that wasn't it the Ohio State kid missed the field goal late? Yeah. And he missed it like 12 seconds before New Year's. Okay. It was that close. Because we're watching like we're gonna miss it. We're not, and it was. It was awesomely close.
Can I give you an enlightening moment of like just how stupid people can be? And this was me. I was stupid. Okay.
This is the best part of my year so far.
We're at this Roaring 20s party, and everyone's having a good time. And so my phone starts vibrating, and it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, I wonder what's going on. So finally we go up these steps, and I kind of grab my phone because we have a moment, and I look at my phone, and there's a bunch of people wishing me Happy New Year. And I keep looking at my phone, And I'm thinking to myself, like,
oh, because you're in the wrong time zone.
yes. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it's 11:15. Like, why? I have got like 20 messages here wishing me Happy New Year. And it literally took me like 60 seconds to realize that I am the biggest idiot ever and that I was in a different
Well, how
time
many
zone.
adult beverages have you had by that point?
A few, but that's not the point. I should still know better.
Well, I would think so too.
No,
I had a cute
I
little
sincerely enjoyed Nashville. It was good.
So let me tell you, parental stories. This is what happens when you're a cool dad. Well, first of all, when you're cool and your kids are old enough that they're in high school and college, you spend New Year's Eve sitting home on the couch.
Okay.
So my daughter was going back. She went. My oldest daughter, my middle daughter, or I don't know, how do you say that? I have girl, boy. Is she your middle daughter or is she your younger daughter? Either way, she's still home. The middle child is still home. The older daughter went back Saturday. So it's Friday night. We're sitting home. It's her last night there. She's leaving Saturday morning. And I said, "You watch a movie?" And she's like, "Sure." What so we start scanning through the things to see what she can find. And there is a newer version of All's Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the book?
I haven't.
Okay, neither did I. But I have an interesting story about that too, but I'll tell that off there. So she's like, oh, she looks up the reviews. The reviews are really good.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to watch it.
Okay.
Fine. It's in German.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh, okay.
So we are a couple minutes in.
Uh-huh.
There's subtitles flowing.
Yep.
And some movies start with something, like maybe for a scene or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking, well, they're going to stick with these soldiers, this war. Like they're not, it's not like this is the scene and then they're jumping forward 10 years.
Right.
So I'm Googling and I'm searching and I said to her, hey, this is all subtitled. What are we going to do? And she looks over and goes, I still kind of wanted to watch it. So being the loving dad I am and just wanting to spend, and as other parents can relate to this, just wanting to spend quality time with my kid, because subtitled movies are not my thing.
What is it? You don't like, it's
a lot of work.
Is it?
Yes.
They're right there.
Well, once, and I've said this to her before, because she texted me, and once she went back to college, she's like, thanks for watching the movie. I know it's not your cup of tea and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Once you get in the flow, it's just kind of second nature.
Yeah.
But I was just explaining to Carrie and Julie this morning, it's really hard when you're watching a movie and you're listening, you can check your phone out and hear it.
See, so that's the problem.
I mean, not that I couldn't hear it, but when he's speaking German, I have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah.
So you can't check your phone and follow along at the same time. So I will admit I didn't catch everything.
To say
you're gonna say that's a you problem.
You problem is rude, but it is like that is watch the movie. Like watch the movie. Like you're making a choice. Engage in the thing that's in front of you.
It is accurate. It is.
Is
you
it not?
problem.
Is
it might be rude, but it's accurate. I
really enjoyed it.
You saw the movie?
I saw the movie. I really enjoyed it.
I will say this, and I've made this comment to multiple people. It is sad as hell.
Oh yeah.
Now I followed up with most war movies are. They're not uplifting.
Sure.
But it is sad.
It's really well done. And the performances are great. Really, really great.
Yeah, it would have been better in English though.
Would it?
Yeah. And I know if you're following German soldiers around, like why would you have them speak English? Yeah. I get that whole point.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to make it easier for me.
One of our favorite shows that we had finished was Money Heist. Have you heard about this?
You told me. Only from you.
And it is, I mean, it's a subtitle show. Now they have it lip dubbed. Like you can listen to it in
English. like a kung fu movie.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We did not do that. We did the subtitles. I will say part of our enjoyment is obviously the show is great, but part of our enjoyment was like you have no choice. Like you're so ingrained in what's in front of you because there are no distractions because of the subtitles. It almost made me appreciate the show more had I not had to listen to it without subtitles.
Yeah, but just think of how much is happening in the world that you're missing.
Just engage in what's in front of you.
I will say this, and I told her this after she texted me. I said it is actually encouraged. I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe encouraged, motivated to watch Parasite again because I loved Parasite when we watched it in the theater. We actually went to the theater and see it, and but. Every time I think it may be one of my favorite movies ever that I've only watched once. Because if I think about watching it again, my first thought is, God, I got to read for 2 straight hours.
That is incredible that that's the thing that would deter you.
Oh, that's worse.
You're missing out on a lot.
Am I?
I think you are.
Am I?
I think you are.
I
think
can't
you're
be
missing
the only
on a
one
lot.
out there who's like
Oh,
subtitle.
You're far from the only one. I think I've told you about. One of my players watches everything with subtitles. Do you remember me telling you about this? They were watching Breaking Bad.
Okay.
And they had subtitles on. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, it just helps, it helps me understand what's going on better. Like I can actually read and see.
I say an old guy my era told me that he watches everything too because of as he's getting older, his hearing's not as good. And instead of having to rewind, it just helps him if he's. So yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. I just heard that the other day.
So then, like a week later, the same kid is watching The Office.
Okay.
And he has the subtitles on.
Okay.
And so I'm like, he's like, well, so I was thinking to myself, like, he must do this for everything. It doesn't, because Breaking Bad, like chemicals and drug lords.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, like, it's just easier.
Some of the dialect. Yeah.
Yeah. But then he's watching it with The Office. And I was like, oh, you just enjoy the subtitles, period. So I don't know. There are people out there that have the subtitles on regardless.
So then and this was one of your players?
Mm-hmm.
So then when you're coaching.
He would have been 17 because he would have been a senior. He definitely would have been a senior when this was happening.
So when you were coaching him, then everything that he didn't take in, it's because when you're speaking, you don't have the little Spider-Man bubble above your head.
That's right. There's no subtitle for him to see. It all makes sense.
It's not his fault.
I don't know.
When you're like, dude, I've told you this 3 times. It's not his fault. Text it to him. You'll have to talk and text.
Talk and text. Have you tried that yet? You're just gonna start throwing stuff at the wall.
Whatever works.
You're just gonna start throwing stuff at the wall. Can we do? Let's do 2 topics. Is that all right for today?
Whatever you want.
Get us back to the swing of things. You had brought up the House with Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy finally made it through on the 15th vote. For those who have not kept up with it, go do your research. We're not going to dive through the whole thing. Right. But we did. There's a couple of just like we like to throw some off the wall things here. I do want to talk about Matt Gaetz at some point. But I didn't know if you had kind of like a lead into like.
The one thing that I thought was, again, all this stuff with what they have after. Like when I watch the debates, the presidential debates or the big debates, I am as morbidly curious of the not the talking heads who are neutral who are analyzing, but the representative from the right who talks about their person, the representative from the left who everything is glowing. And our guy did great. Our girl did great. And you're just like, no, they didn't.
Sure.
So for all the Republicans to come out and say, this is good for America. This shows how democracy works. 15 votes it's not good. There's no way he goes in with any sort of authority.
Sure.
They have a razor thin margin anyway. His whole party doesn't even like him. Like, this is not good. This is and listening to, I just wish sometime in politics, somebody from inside the party, not just a talking head or not someone who used to work for Bush or something like that. Someone came out and said, listen, this just shows we're in a little bit of a struggle right now in the GOP. And we're a little bit fractured, whatever word I'm looking for.
Sure.
And to say, and we're going to it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. We're going to have to take some time here to try to get ourselves refocused so we're back on the same page, because obviously we're not there right now.
Yeah.
But they come out and say, oh, this is great. This is everything. America's never been stronger. It's like it took 15 votes. It doesn't take this long to get a pope. Like,
right.
No, that's what I was waiting for. Black smoke, white smoke, that's when they have a pope. So anyway, that was just my funny thought.
No, I'm with you. Just some quick details on it. He obviously had to make some concessions. I don't know if you've heard anything about this or read anything about it. So McCarthy made some concessions in order to finally get the votes he needed on the 15th try. Some of them are really interesting. One of them, it includes a rule that says any move to raise the debt ceiling must also be accompanied by spending cuts. That's one of the concessions that was made. The rules package includes a resolution establishing a House Select Committee on the weaponization of the federal government. I was trying to read into that a little bit. The one that really, really caught my eye, and you and I have actually talked about this before, lawmakers have 72 hours to review bills before they come to the floor. So that was one of the things that is now going to be present whenever they vote on this stuff.
Good.
You and I have talked about this. there are people in politics that I really dislike. I've said I dislike Ted Cruz. No, just stay with
Everybody,
me. Stay with me. I dislike Ted Cruz. But I've said to you before, like once a month, he'll say something and I'll just be like, I think I agree. Like I can't.
Yes.
Matt Gaetz is one of those people. Matt Gaetz is, I can't stand him. I don't think he should be where he is. However, he has these moments where like I hear him say something. One of them was he was very big on single cause bills, right?
Yes.
So if they are introducing a bill, anything within the bill should pertain to the cause at hand. And Matt Gaetz is one of the only people in the House that is pushing for that. And I could not agree more with Matt Gaetz on that issue. One of the things that Matt Gaetz said about voting for Kevin McCarthy, and he actually said this in front of the entire House, is he made the comment that Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes. And so the whole point of this is like, if you don't have the votes, you should not be the Speaker of the House. And as I listen to Matt Gaetz say that, I know he's like stirring up trouble, and I know but at the same time, I'm listening to it, I'm thinking to myself, like,
good point.
I'm thinking to myself, like, if anybody else in that room didn't get it by the 7th, 8th, 9th, like if Matt Gaetz was trying to be the Speaker of the House, what would they say after the 3rd try? What would they say after the 4th try? They'd be looking at Matt Gaetz like, give it up, Matt. It's not happening. Like, you're not getting the votes. Like, it's not. But because it's Matt Gaetz, all of a sudden now it's like, well, he's just caught. I disagree. I think Matt Gaetz had a very good point of like, if you don't have the votes, then should you be the Speaker of the House? And I thought that was very, again, can't stand the guy, but every once in a while, Matt Gaetz says something. I'm like, wow, I very vehemently agree with that. I very much agreed with Matt Gaetz.
Well, I never, I didn't. Well, my mom had Face the Nation on the other day because she watches that stuff on Sunday morning, and I saw it, and there were two Republicans that I saw, and I think they were both from the House. One was the chick, I think her name is Mace from South Carolina, and one was a dude, and I can't remember his name, but he represents El Paso.
Okay.
And what he was a former military guy, and I never put this together until yesterday watching this. The beauty of the Trump, anti-Trump fracture right now in the GOP is it allows, because now within the party, there's lots of people who don't agree.
Sure.
So now, if you don't agree, you can say it. And it just doesn't have to be about whether Trump or not Trump or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Because both of them, they brought up who's the guy in Santos.
Okay.
And the chick in the party said, well, if we don't believe him, what do we believe him about anything? And if he was a Democrat, then on the other side, then they talked to the.
For those who don't know, Santos is a candidate who won. He completely lied about his entire.
Who lied about everything.
Everything. He's basically, people that voted for him voted for a person that does not exist.
Because and he's a Republican, and they said the interviewer said, "Would you be out?" She's like, basically yes, because why would you believe him about?
Sure.
And she said if it happened on the other side, we'd go nuts.
Sure.
So if it happened. And then the guy from El Paso was talking about, he was in one breath, he was blasting Biden because they're doing a border thing and he wasn't invited and he wants to be invited. And he's like, but I represent the border. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And which seemed like a very lucid point to me. And then in the other aspect, he said that the Republicans are putting through this bill that he doesn't like because of they're making military cuts and he's voting against it.
Sure.
And because that was his whole thing with Biden. Like, I'm not this crazy, like, yay, right. He goes, I'm voting against our own bill because I don't like the military aspect of it.
Right.
But when you're coming to talk about a border that I represent, these are my constituents and I'm not invited. Like, who are you inviting? Someone from Oregon? Like,
sure.
It has allowed I saw these two people in like 20 minutes and they were both actually saying fair. They had fair, intelligent criticisms about both sides.
Sure.
And that's what politics is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like it's been that way lately. And now this Trump, anti-Trump in the Republican Party has allowed people to say, I disagree with you, both on the same side of the aisle. And it'll be neat.
It's funny to me how the media made going to 15 votes such a negative thing. And my whole, like I've said for the last 24 hours, it's not ideal, But to just paint it as negative, I disagree with, because I think it shows that you have people that aren't necessarily just going along party lines and just saying, like, this is the person who promised me this, and this person got us most money, and so he's the Speaker of the House. And I think that, like, again, not ideal.
It's negative for McCarthy.
Sure.
But it's not negative for the system in general.
And it's not ideal for Americans, because a lot of stuff is going to get blocked here in the next 2 years. It just is. It 100%. So there are going to be some things for like certain aspects of Americans that are going to get blocked, and it's going to be slowed down. However, though, like, I kind of like the fact that we didn't just have a Speaker of the House get voted in right away, because he just made all the right promises and had enough funds, and it just happened. I like the fact that there's people kind of in there kind of being like, wait a second, like, he doesn't have the votes. What are we doing? Like, and again, it's one of the few things I agree with Matt Gaetz about, but I very much agreed with him.
It is fascinating. You bring up a good point, not just in politics, but in life in general. There are people that we think are idiots. Mm-hmm. There are people that we just can't stand, that we think are just terrible people. But they can give you good information too.
Sure.
And they can bring up a point. And, you know, I had a coach back in my youth once that I could not stand. Mm. But I still steal a couple of his lines because he had some good lines.
Sure.
And just because in general I thought he was a lousy coach, he wasn't lousy about every aspect of coaching. He was just lousier than most.
Yes.
So, you know, it is. You can learn from a lot of people if you just take the time to listen.
Totally. And especially the people in the House. Like, I know right now to be a career politician is very frowned upon, and you and I agree they shouldn't be career politicians. However, though, most of the people in there got there somehow. Like we've talked about before, like people go.
Well, I would say all the people in there got there somehow.
Well, that's true. But what I'm saying is most people get upset, and we've talked about this. Like people are like, why do people in Kentucky vote for McConnell? And it's because if you go look through the track record over and over again, Kentucky gets the most federal funds. And so if you go member by member through that House, at some point they did or said the right thing. So the idea that all the people in there, that there's just people in the House aren't eventually going to say something that's intelligent or right or thought-provoking, I disagree with. At some point, even the people you vehemently disagree with the most are going to say something worthwhile.
Yes, I agree. And I think the issues come from, you know, power hungry and taking the company line. Even when I disagree with it, I'm going to vote this way because I don't want to piss you off, and you're going to help me down the road. Yeah. So those are the issues. I don't necessarily think they're stupid. They're probably all actually rather intelligent, but it's just the shady corruption aspect of it that ruins it.
No, I'm with you. Let's move on. Since we didn't get to talk about it, obviously the story, I would argue maybe of the
nation
was Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills player who basically his heart stopped on the field, fell over, almost passed away. We're not going to necessarily bore you kind of like recapping that. I had one thing that I wanted to say about it. Did you have something specific that you wanted to say about it?
Well, all I wanted to say is from the NFL standpoint that they had to cancel the game, and there was debate at that night. They should have canceled it sooner, which they probably should have, and all that stuff. But because of the timing of it, because of I know Cincinnati's upset because of the way the playoffs may or may not be handled, because the game got canceled. They're not playing it, and there was no good solution. You know, if it had happened in September before bye weeks, they could have adjusted. They could have made maybe they would have readjusted the playoff schedule to lose the off week before the Super Bowl, because way back in the day they didn't have an off week before.
Right.
They could have done. When it happened the week it did, anyone who is sitting around complaining, oh, the NFL, they screwed it up and they should have done this. Like, the kid almost died.
Sure.
And there was no good solution to the scheduling issue.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for that. And you know, people love to complain.
I'm guilty.
And I think all those complaints are like, what were they supposed to do? I think it worked out as best they could.
Sure. I've said before, when it first happened, I said, there's no way they should play this game, just because from a mentality standpoint, focus standpoint, like you're just not going to be able to do it. This is kind of like I don't want to call it a hot take, but this is kind of where I think I've disagreed with most of America. When I went online and when I would talk to people that night and the following day, it was like if you talked about anything else, it was disheartening. Like you were being rude to mention anything else. And I didn't understand that. There were a couple of reporters that tweeted something or went on the television and said something. There was a basketball reporter who at that night, someone had scored over 70 points, almost at the same moment that Hamlin had fell on the ground. And he tweeted 70 points, incredible. And he almost got canceled. I mean, his entire mentions.
Who was it?
Chris Vernon. He works for The Ringer. He's a broadcaster for the Memphis Grizzlies, and then the national outlet is The Ringer. He has one of the best, not best, he has one of the highest rated basketball podcasts in the world.
Okay.
So you're talking hundreds of thousands of followers and listeners. So yeah, and he tweeted like 70 points, incredible, because it is incredible. I mean, I think 5 people in the history of the NBA have scored 70 points, and he almost got canceled that night because people were just commenting and mentioning, how could you read the room? How could you tweet about some of that? And the guy's looking around, he's like, I'm a basketball announcer. Like this is what I do. Like, and you're upset. Like, I don't understand how. I understand how America could be upset. I understand that America pulled together. Some of the stuff that they were able to do charity-wise, stuff like that, was incredible. Like the amount of prayer circles and things that were going on, absolutely incredible. It's what makes America great. The things that make America awful are when you immediately now, like teams, like if you weren't tweeting about Hamlin, you didn't care. And how could you? It was very bizarre. It was really, really weird. It was almost like watching politics like creep into sports, where it was kind of like if you tweeted about something other than Hamlin, like read the room, this is what. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Like everyone feels bad for Hamlin. Everyone hopes he pulls through. The rest of the world is still moving. Like the rest of the world is still going on.
No, I get that. But that night it was like.
So you disagree.
I will say this.
Do you think it was insensitive for anybody to talk or tweet or do anything that night other than talk about Hamlin? Because I
would say in the sports world, yes.
Really?
Yes. Because I will say this. I've still not seen it.
Uh-huh.
I won't go find it. And they say it's not, it's a guy that just collapsed. It's not like, but I'm not in all the ways that I'm really tough and macho. Like you're too young for the Joe Theismann injury.
But I've seen it.
It was 20 years before I saw it. I heard about it. I was not watching. It was Monday Night Football, I think. I was not watching when it happened. I heard it. I heard how gruesome it was, and I did not find it. I was at the office. I was at my real estate office when it happened, and my phone started blowing up. Are you watching the game? Are you watching the game? Are you watching the game? And so if I would have messaged you and said some guy for the Cavs just scored 70 points, would you have been like, Jeff, what are you doing? In my 15 texts I got, you would have been the only one talking.
I understand that.
Else.
If I did that though, would you have been like, Jeff, what are you doing?
I probably would have said it, but there is a level of it either seeing a 24-year-old kid almost die on the field in front of our eyes. It either is like a shocking, overwhelming, like everything stops moment, or it's a bullet point.
Okay.
And if it becomes a bullet point, like, hey, this kid almost died on the field on Monday Night Football. This guy had 70 points. This guy just signed a contract with Live Golf.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, I think when you kind of lump it together, it does come off as a little insensitive.
Interesting. See, we disagree on that because I want to think how I say this. My ability to see what happened, hope for the best, hope he pulls through. I was sitting there with my cousins and I said to them, I was like, they can't play this game. Like I was the first one in the room.
There's no.
I was like, they can't play this game.
Game's over.
So what's funny is like, I don't feel like I was insensitive to the moment at all. But I'm watching, but everyone immediately was quick to judge everybody else on whether or not they were being sensitive enough or not. And that is the part where I'm like, what is that? That was like bizarro world. Watching America immediately become judges of who's being sensitive enough and who's not was weird. Really bizarre.
Yeah, I guess, but there is a moment of I don't want to say mourning, but there is a mourning period of like this happened and it's.
But what if, let me ask you this then. What if you're not an NFL fan? What if like you go through your entire life and like Sundays to you have nothing to do with football?
Oh no, absolutely. There are people who had no idea it happened.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, those people don't, but they're not texting sports stuff. Like in the sports world, it was the only story that was happening.
But it wasn't.
But
I think is the point that I listen from a what is the thing from a humanitarian standpoint, like from a societal standpoint, what is the thing that has like the most depth and matters the most in that moment? Hamlin's life. Like no one's disputing that.
Right.
Like what I'm saying though is if someone messages or tweets out 70 points incredible, that does not diminish what that person thinks or feels about Hamlin in that moment at all. It has no foreboding on their ability.
Nice word.
It has no
Look
foreboding.
at you.
Thank you. On their ability to understand that that Hamlin's life is in jeopardy. None whatsoever.
No, I get that. Okay, so let's do this way, and I'll ask him then what his thoughts are because he's not watching us. But Chris Massey always does a tweet storm, the sports writer for the Sun Gazette. Sure. It's almost during basketball season. It's almost nightly because there's games nightly. Sure. So story 11, like blah blah blah, and he goes all over his coverage area, and he does boys and girls. It's awesome.
Sure.
So if there's a kid who at any school, boy or girl, pick a game, who something happens and leaves the court in an ambulance, and their life is hanging in the balance. He can't. I can't imagine he would say, this happened at such and such school to such and such player. They were rushed off. The game was canceled. They're in critical condition. And then there's another one. But over at Newman, Davion has it. And you just can't.
Totally. But the difference in what you're describing, though, is that he was covering that kid or game.
Even if he wasn't.
That's the difference.
I don't think if he was. I think if that happens anywhere I think it's one tweet that night. So-and-so went in cardiac arrest. They're in critical condition. Our prayers are with them.
And the game in front of him is no longer taking place, is what you're saying. Like in Chris Massey's world,
he would be, and they would play that. But afterwards, when he's doing his tweet storm,
I get it.
He can't. I don't think he could put. Like, here are 12 tweets I'm going to put. One of them is this kid almost died, and 11 more are basketball stats. I think if you do that, it comes across insensitive.
That's the point I'm making, though, is we have moved to a place in America where now people will immediately decide that he is not being sensitive enough. And who knows, he could have reached out to the family. He could have, who knows what he did between then and now. The point I'm making, though, is immediately people are now using social media as a place to judge whether you or I were sensitive enough in the moment.
Well, I think it shows whether you're sensitive.
Does it?
If you're like, hey, we wish you well, what do you want for lunch? Like, that's not all that sensitive because you're not all that affected.
I understand that. But isn't there, I'm trying to think how far I want to take this because I don't want to, because obviously there's been some stuff that happened here locally recently.
I get your point that there's still other stuff in the world. And I wouldn't say someone who is.
To me, it showed the power of the NFL. And because in any other aspect, if this would have happened in a different league, if it would have happened in a different aspect of life, I don't think people are trying to judge the sensitivity of others. But because it's the NFL and because I saw this crazy statistic you would have appreciated, it had the top 50 television ratings of 2022. Okay. 45 out of the 50 were the NFL.
I believe it.
So the point I'm making is, to me, it showed how much people care about the NFL.
There was a time, and I'm sure it's still, I haven't seen TV ratings in a while, that of the top 10 shows of the week, that the NBC pregame for Sunday Night Football was one of the top 10 shows of the week.
Yeah, I believe it. So I don't know. I didn't like again, they shouldn't have played the game. I'm glad they didn't. But people were like, the NFL didn't move quick enough. They're like, people should stop tweeting about this. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what is happening right now? Why all of a sudden does the sensitivity of everyone around us matter more, almost more than what we are doing as individuals about what we just saw? It was really weird, super weird.
I disagree. I think I think there's a level of, like, say you're going to a viewing or a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if you just kind of jam it in between running errands, like, hey, I got to stop here, we'll stop here, we'll stop here, then we'll go to the viewing, and it's like on your to-do list. Mm-hmm. It seems very
How would someone know that?
It seems, to anyone who did know, it would come across as less. So on your way to the funeral to pay your final respects for this person, you decide to stop and get gas and cigarettes. Like, then it's hard to say, well, you're really broken up about this because the gas and cigarettes came first. Like, you couldn't even, for however long it is, just go. Because I know whenever we go to a viewing or a funeral, for the rest of us, unless it's a close family member, we have stuff we do the rest of the day, and we have other stuff around it. But for a chunk of that day, you kind of have to be there.
Okay. So this will be the last. I'm not even trying to sell you on it, but this would be like the last question I have for you. There are people every day who go through life and something happens. There are teenagers who pass away. There's things there's just circumstances in our world that we can't control. At some point, the flip switched that night where people told me how I was supposed to react and how I should care about Hamlin. Which is weird because I would never tell somebody else how they should care about the people I care about. Like, if someone in my life or in my world had something like that happen to them, I would never think somebody was insensitive because they talked about something else or they reached out about something else So at some point, society that night decided that this was the thing and you couldn't speak on anything else. And I'm just saying, like, to me, that was that was a world I was not expecting as I watched that person get carted off the field.
No, I get it. But what made this situation unique was it didn't happen in the locker room. It didn't happen in the stands.
No, I get it. It was on national TV, and I get that.
It is rare.
I get that.
We almost see someone die.
So what happened was a lot of people saw it at the same time. And then what happened is, like, I don't want to say teams because everyone wanted him to pull through.
Right.
But what happened was it was almost became like this thing of, like, people just stopped remembering that other people were doing other things. Like, people just stopped thinking about the idea that, like, there's stuff going on all around the country and people might be messaging about something completely different and they might not even be watching the football game. You could see it in real time. Like, people going after people for not having Hamlin being the number one thing on their mind.
Well,
You could see it.
I'm sure there are worlds of, like, people who don't know anything about sports, don't know anything about football, don't care, that are tweeting, hey, I just saw this movie and it was great. I just read this book. Have you heard this new album? You know, all this stuff. And I'm sure in their circles, for a sports guy to in the middle of this to be like, oh, by the way, you know, like when the day Prince died, if a half hour later, someone in the music world, even if it's a little different genre, if they're in the rock and roll world that says, hey, AC/DC's new album's really great, then people would be like, dude, like Prince just died.
Yeah, and see, I think this is a good conversation because I think we just disagree. Like, I think them tweeting or messaging or whatever about an AC/DC album and the timing of it has nothing to do with how they might feel about Prince or the sensitivity they might feel towards Prince.
It shows they've moved on already, that they're like the tip of the thing on the top of my brain now is this AC/DC album. It's not even Prince anymore. I know he's been dead for a half hour, so I've already moved on.
But, like, and that's they're not Prince's cousin. Like these are just music fans.
But
like they're just
still,
like they're sports fans. They're music fans. Like they're people.
But
like
it's in the situation, it's life or death. And I know it had the internet a buzz, just like the Will Smith slap had the internet a buzz.
Mm-hmm.
But the Will Smith slap is not life or death unless you're talking about a career.
But
that was the only thing.
But see, that's what's funny is I don't think I'm trying to say it wasn't life and death. Like I don't think I'm saying that. Like I'm saying.
Well, no, I know. This is what we know that.
I understand. I think what I'm saying is like as I'm sitting there in front of the TV, I would argue I was as sensitive as a person is supposed to be. I was like, this is awful. I hope he's okay. Hopefully he pulls through. Can you imagine how his teammates are feeling right now? And like at one point, like literally 5 minutes later, I was like, they can't play this game. Like no one can focus right now. They can't possibly play this game. And I'm one of the people that had I not been in Nashville, I would have been watching the 70-point basketball game. Like I wouldn't have even had Hamlin on my screen.
Well, I get that.
So what I'm saying
if you didn't know, you didn't know.
So
but if you do know.
So what I'm saying is like at some point that night, society decided online, right? Like virtually online and through their phones, that like there was no separation between the two anymore. You were either talking about Hamlin or you were insensitive. And to me, that's a very like I disagree with the line. I don't think that night was a fair night for people who weren't necessarily talking about Hamlin. I don't.
I think that night in the sports world, you know, obviously there's other things happening but if an hour after when the game stopped and ESPN doesn't know what to do and people are praying on the set and all this stuff, if someone's tweeting, you know, if Lamar Jackson doesn't come back, the Ravens are going to be one and done in the playoffs, then that's insensitive. And yes, the Ravens have a football program, and Lamar Jackson is a former MVP who changes their world and in the Super Bowl, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But in the moment,
what if I tweet it?
Then it seems like you're insensitive.
See, I disagree. Really good. It's a really good conversation.
It doesn't even seem like you're insensitive. Then you are.
No, it's just a very good conversation because it's very clearly like we're on different lines of it, and it made
there is a timeline. Like how long is it? And I would say, like the next morning you got up. But the next morning I got up and I was like, what are they doing with the game?
But this is what's funny is like like you're imposing what you think the timeline should be onto me.
Correct.
And
well, that's what everyone does.
No,
we all do.
And so that's what I'm saying is like that night, I vehemently disagreed with the imposing of sensitivity onto other people. Like people going like, it's insensitive, it's too soon, it's that, it's too this. There's going to be people that don't talk about anything else for weeks. Like I get it. Like they're like it's a different, but to act like to almost get people canceled because they decided to message about the thing that was in front of them is like I just can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't.
I can. It does to me. No, not to get canceled, but to say like, dude, okay, there's a guy dying on the field, and you're talking about a guy running a hot shooting night.
But there's like, we're gonna. I mean, it's
we'll agree to disagree.
We will. Thank you guys for coming back with us. Thank you for joining us again. Go ahead. What's your afterthought? I have afterthoughts. I want you to watch The Bear on Hulu. Have you heard about this at all?
I think you mentioned it to me.
I finally finished. Anybody?
It's not about a grizzly bear.
It's not. If you have ever worked in a restaurant or a diner,
you told me that.
This show is incredible. Chicago. It's like inner city Chicago beef diner. It's really, really good. There is an artist I need you to listen to. His name is Orville Peck.
You told me about him.
Orville Peck. He wears a mask at all times. He's a country singer. It's like if Elvis and Michael Bolton like had a kid and they were like, make a soft country album. You will really, really like it. It's really, really good.
He wears a mask.
He wears a mask.
So
no one actually knows who he is.
He's a professional wrestler.
There's like Reddit threads and Google trends of like people trying to figure out who actually is Orville Peck.
Have we been on since I watched John Cena's match?
Probably not. What happened in John Cena's match?
He wrestled. I don't even know if you know the story. He had wrestled 19 straight years. Okay. Now he's an actor now and he does all these other things, but he had been a WWE performer at some point of every. So the last Friday Night SmackDown was on December 30th.
Okay.
So he came back and wrestled a tag team match to keep the streak going. And I watched 2 hours of Friday Night SmackDown.
Awesome.
For the first time I watched like WrestleMania with my son. And my son wasn't even home, but I watched from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. He is, by the way, and you probably know this just because you know stuff like this. He is far and away the Make-A-Wish Foundation grant.
Yeah.
Champion.
Nobody does more than John Cena.
And it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like he has done so many Make-A-Wish grants. Yeah. And so yes, he came back and wrestled, and it was a tag team match. It was fun.
Wrestling to me is subtitles to you. Like 2 hours of wrestling sounds like pure torture.
It's
pure
so much
torture.
No, it's so much fun. It's just like, because you get it. Like, I don't even know how to explain it.
Torture. I already did it for you in one word.
It's like when you're watching a reality show.
Yeah. That's not real.
Yeah. But you know it's not real. But you know there are people out there who are like, oh my God.
I never make fun
and you're just like, yeah, the Kardashians, they see the whole film crew. They're sitting right there.
I never make fun of people who watch it because it's a stress relief. It's no different than me watching Family Guy. Like, I get it. But like for me personally, torture. Like, I can't do it. It's a brutal watch. It's just people screaming into microphones and sweaty men touching sweaty men. And it's just like, I'm out. Like, I just don't need it.
The size and the acrobatics are great.
Are they?
Yes, they are great. It is so much fun. If you have to, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if I've told you this story. I went to, my son has watched it. He watched it as a little kid. Now we watch it again because it's just fun. But we were at, like, there's times you don't want to take your 8-year-old to a rock concert, no matter if they like the music or not, because, whatever. And, there's going to be, aromas of marijuana and all this stuff. It might not be the right crowd. You take your kid to professional wrestling. My son's sitting there. He's talking to the adult next to him about entrance music and tag team. And I've told people I could have gone to the band and say, hey, can you watch my kid? They just said, yep, we're great. We'll be back. And it was like adult, 8-year-old, adult, and they are all in the same conversation. It was awesome in its own way.
I stole your. Did you have any other afterthoughts? Because I kind of stole yours. You're good?
No, I
good.
I thought I had one, and I don't even think that I have one anymore. What is today then?
It's the 9th of January, 2023.
Something about something.
On Monday. I think that was.
No, I don't know. I think tonight's a national championship game.
Okay.
No Big Ten.
Good for the Horned Frogs.
I don't think. Although Michigan got screwed.
Yeah.
On the touchdown reversal, and then
we were
they
there
at the next play.
We were in Nashville during the Music City Bowl. Iowa and Kentucky fans.
Okay.
Both really, I did not meet a rude or mean Kentucky or Iowa fan the entire day.
Do you know why?
Really neat.
Do you know of the stereotypes? There's a reason for a lot of stereotypes. You know why? Because they're from the Midwest.
Probably.
Have you ever met someone from the Midwest who was not a nice person?
I don't know how many.
You haven't met.
I don't know how many people I've met from the Midwest.
But they are nice people.
Yeah,
they really are.
Really, really. Thank you guys for joining back with us. Thank you for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. Go ahead.
I do have one more mention.
Go ahead.
I do have one more mention. I didn't wear the right outfit today, but
yes.
North Carolina played Pitt over the break. How did that go?
Didn't North Carolina win? Are you talking basketball or football? Who won? Oh, Pitt? North Carolina just beat Notre Dame. They didn't beat Pitt. Sorry.
No, they lost to Pitt.
Yeah.
So
they're struggle busting. I don't even think they're in the top 25 still yet.
I know you're coming to Pitt. It's a tough place to play, buddy.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable. I do want to shout out. We had a viewer.
My daughter goes there. If anyone doesn't know, that's my affiliation with Pitt now. But I know you're Carolina.
Real diehard Pitt fan.
Diehard.
We just want to shout out a viewer. She actually sent us cookies. A tin of cookies. Lisa Fanny, thank you very much. No, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I've eaten way more than you have. They're sitting right there.
I think I've had 2 so far. The Office loved them. We loved them. Thank you very much. David's. I've never heard of David's cookies.
I had 2 of them when I opened them.
Had you heard of David's cookies?
I think so. When we first got it, we were concerned because we're like, all right, who are they from? Are these poisoned? Are they? Because not everyone agrees with everything we say.
That's true.
But then they were official. They were in the David's tin. They were sealed, and they said if someone has gone to this great length to poison us, E2 Brute, then fall Caesar.
Yes, no, I agree with you. So thank you to Lisa. Couple of shout outs. Bogue, we have to shout out Bogue. Shout out Brad, Jimmy.
Why?
Rants. Because they watch the show every day.
They don't
So we're
watch
just
it
shouting
every
them out.
day. They don't watch
You don't
it every
think
day.
so?
They lie to you.
Every day.
They lie to you.
They actually give me topics sometimes.
I don't think they do.
They actually do. Lisa says, enjoy, you deserve it. Thank you, Lisa. Not sure what we deserve, but we'll take it.
Well, Jeff has enjoyed less than I have because
So far I have.
I don't know how you. Is it the potato chip commercial that the slogan that said you could never eat just one? I don't know how you walk by like a plate of cookies and just take one.
I have horrible eating habits. Desserts is not one of my weaknesses. I like cake, I'm good. Cookies are okay. Like candy, like I'm not a huge like
You are not a
sweets
sweets person.
No.
And they're just so convenient. And you have two hands.
Yeah.
So why would you just you can
two.
hold one on deck while you're eating the other?
Yeah. No, I had two. They were delicious. Chocolate chip were really good. Really, really
They're
good.
good. It's hard to make a bad chocolate chip cookie. It's like pizza.
There's people that don't like pizza though. Like that have like very
They're not very
critique.
bright. Unless there's an allergy.
What did you call him earlier today? Jerry Poo?
Jerry Poo. Jerry loves pizza.
Yeah, but he's very particular about the pizza.
He's way too analytical about pizza. Yes, I would agree with that.
I will never get on anybody for being too analytical about something. That's like casting a stone into the mirror. What is that? What is it? Pointing a finger in the mirror or something like that?
Glass houses?
Something like that.
Glass houses?
Something like that.
Whatever. All right.
Thank you guys for watching. We will see you soon.